I can remember living with my mother and 5 brothers. My mother would be gone all the time. She would drop us off over at a lady's house. And the lady kept me and my brother in the attic. It was always dark. I really didn't do a lot of the fun stuff that normal kids do. I didn't have any school friends that I did anything with that came over for sleepovers, that I went to their houses for birthday parties. And around 4 or 5, my mother said my father wanted to see me. My father was in California. I remember getting on the airplane and never returning.
It's estimated that 1% of the national population is involved in the sex industry in some way. That's nearly 400 million men, women, and children, with no viable means to track it. The numbers could be much higher for this under-discussed population. And the problem is not isolated to any particular group, age, ethnicity, social status. Participants come from all walks of life. For those who have no direct connection to the industry, the questions are, so why do those women start prostituting anyway? And why don't they just stop? But for those stuck in this vicious cycle, the answer is not so easy, and the reasons for getting involved are many. A temporary way to pay for school tuition, the draw to fast money and perceived glamour, the need to earn money to support children, or a drug habit. A lifetime of abuse or molestation that leads to low self-esteem or desensitization to the problem when raised around it. For Renee, going to live with her father should have been the solution to the problem.
My father's narcotic officer. He was retired now. He raised me the best that he could, and there were stepmothers, and my aunt, she was in California, so my father allowed her to help, raise me. She was a prostitute too. I was about 14 or 15. She had stopped prostituting, but she was selling big dope, and I mean a lot of it. And she was even having me transport stuff across different state lines. One particular night, she decided she wanted to introduce me to some drugs. And she said, I want you to try this just in case anybody out here tries to offer to you. You will know what it is, and you'll know you can always do it at home. By the time I got 17, I was a full-fledged addict of cocaine. Prostituting was not even on my mind during this particular time. Out of the 5 brothers, 3 of them were pimps in Hawaii. So I ran away, went to Hawaii. My brothers are young, they're handsome, they've got all these pretty women here with these clothes and the best of everything, So, okay, I started looking at it, and I said, well, it's the mom did it.
For 14 years, Renee worked for money and drugs, describing the lifestyle as glamorous and fun, at least at first. But like many, the money leads to drugs, at first for entertainment, then to numb the feelings and mentally escape the violent lifestyle. 80 to 90% suffer incest, sexual harassment, verbal and mental abuse, torture, and stalking. They are stolen from, beaten, and raped. Most find themselves in and out of jail, susceptible to incurable diseases and unplanned pregnancies. They live on a never-ending emotional roller coaster, fighting to keep their kids and sometimes searching for the right guy that will love and care for them.
I came from a fairly dysfunctional family, but certainly didn't see prostitution that was no part of my reality growing up. Emotional abuse, some physical abuse, and I was just kind of a lost kid. And so I met a man, which is often the case, and ultimately, kind of got into it because I was in love, but that was also coupled with a taste for heroin. And I did deal with people in the government, assemblymen, senators, lobbyists, and that was a more high-dollar sort of call girl operation. But because of my addiction, when my arms were bad, and then I would end up more doing the street-level prostitution. I was never pimped, per se, and couldn't see the sense of giving my money away. The heroin was pimping me by that time. Yes, there was violence. It just came with the territory, and you rolled with it. And I was beaten and raped went home, showered, and got back on the track.
I was going to college here in Sacramento, and my roommate was prostituting. She needed half of her rent, so I took her to Fresno to go out the street and get her half the money, and she had come running down from the hotel room and said, I have this guy, and he's going to give you quite a large amount of money if you come up here. So I went up there and I did what I had to do and got the money, and I immediately felt empowered and free because I didn't have any money for college at the time, and I used the money to pay for my college books. And I thought, this is easy. It's easy money, and it's the answer to my financial problems. And that's how I kind of got hooked on it. I ended up with what I thought was my boyfriend. And of course, later I found out he was a pimp, and I was being coerced, and I had a quota I had to meet, a certain amount of money I had to make each night. I had more than one pimp, but the main pimp I was with for 10 years. I ended up marrying him and had 2 kids by him.
Pimps use many methods of psychological, physical, and economic means to keep control of their girls. Using the promise of protection, threats, or perceived captivity, they often isolate them from others who might offer support. With this description, you might not think of a pimp as a victim, but historically, their backgrounds also include childhood trauma, and their role models imprinted society's perception of these women on them.
I was attracted to the flashy cars and the girls and the money. I always had 2 or 3 girls, and the way it worked was a girl sees you and she likes your swagger, and you know, she'll just straight come to you until she want to be with you. Well, I hope you got the proper down payment. I had a girl in Bakersfield one night give me $13,000 to get with me. I mean, I didn't make deals like, you know, you get half and I get half. I got to have it all. I'm providing the shelter and like bailing them out of jail. I'm getting lawyers for them when they go to court. I'm watching them. That's how it goes. Out there on the stroll, girls can't be without a man. Any pimp can come walk up on them and can break them and take their money. And I was having money and doing whatever I wanted to do. I had a penthouse in Washington, D.C. when I was 19, a brand new Rolls Royce. And then I got into drugs, and that was my downfall.
When I finally learned that I didn't need a pimp for anything, I worked in massage parlors. I worked as a topless dancer in Seattle. I worked for escort services. I ended up owning my own escort service. Me and some other working girls got together, and we all put an ad in the Yellow Pages, and we call it the Hookers Co-op.
Even through the doubt, uncertainty, and low self-esteem on the inside, these ladies become street smart and hardened on the outside. They have a strength and tenacity that keeps them going and, at times, alive. Even the children have a strong instinct to survive.
We didn't go places. We didn't do anything. It was all, I'd say a good chunk of my childhood was about survival. You just, you know, you got up in the morning, you went to school, you ate breakfast and lunch at school, you came home, you were hungry. You know, at night, my mom was gone. I remember just being full of fear for my mom. We were bouncing from places, motel and then the friend's house, and at this point I was just tired of it. And it was almost like there's no respect. And then one day she couldn't get out of bed, and we ended up in the hospital, and all these people were surrounding us, and I was actually embarrassed because she was sick. In my head, I was like, here she goes again. And that was the last time I saw her. I was 9 when my mom died.
Sally never did get involved in sex work, but the effects of her childhood experience did lead her to drink and use drugs. She says that what she learned as a child helped her realize she didn't want her own children brought up that way. And Sally's not the only one that credits her children for strengthening that motherly instinct to get out of the business.
Growing up as a child, it was like very normal household, no drug abuse, no sex abuse or anything like that. They were strictly mom and dad, very interactive with us. Then I got married and was doing the home life, and I had 2 small children. My husband had gotten taken away to prison, and getting involved in sex work was the only option that seemed that would fit at the time. My sister-in-law did it on the internet. It didn't seem threatening. I felt like I wasn't soliciting. I felt like they were soliciting me. So I kind of made a justification in my own head. When I got my first taste of prostitution, That became my main addiction. And once I got sucked in, that money, it was so quick, the lifestyle appeared to be so glamorous, and I thought that women that weren't prostitutes were really slacking on their potential. And in 2011, something terrible happened to me. I was raped in the presence of my daughter, and that changed everything. That's when I realized this is not the life. I didn't quit at that point because I still needed to generate money, but it killed that desire inside.
It's estimated that 85% of prostitutes are looking for a way out but have no other means of survival. Those that do make it are hesitant to give up the security of the income. It's like a step backwards. Sometimes that gradual transition can take years.
Somebody asked me, well, in terms of my addiction, well, when did you decide to get clean? And I said, well, about once a day for 20 years. But the defining moment, I think, was I went to prison. And I became involved there in a writing workshop. And I started thinking, there is another direction for me. And so I was just kind of straddling this fence, struggling with all my demons and my addiction and trying to do this work. So actually, I got clean and sober before I let go of the sex work. I continued to see these men that I had known throughout the years. And, as you get older, the market changes. There is no retirement for old hoes.
Many times where I thought, I wish, yeah, that's it, I'm out. But I didn't really have the support or the help that I would need. At the end, I had a boyfriend. He wasn't a pimp. And he found out that he had 90 days to live and was dying of liver cancer. And so we had 90 days to talk about the meaning of life. And I watched him die, and after he died, I thought about that for a long time. What's important in life? I'm either going to get busy living or I'm going to get busy dying. I went and turned myself into the jailhouse and said, I have 7 warrants, let me in. And then I begged for a program, and they gave me 180 days.
Whether motivated by a traumatic incident or just provided with downtime to dry out in jail and focus on more positive activities, these women all found the willpower to do something else. Little did they know that one day all their lives would connect them in a way the streets never did. The community was working with local agencies and law enforcement to find ways to solve the problem of drugs and prostitution in their neighborhood.
When we came in, we had bars on our windows, but we came in with an attitude that we could actually have an impact by doing something positive. We weren't exclusive. There were a lot of people trying to get the momentum going in order to have an effect on the quality of life. When there's activity like in the stroll, prostitution's on the street, becomes the barrier between the customer and the store. We got to a point where we collected a bunch of people, talked about the business quality of life, and evolved into business associations. Well, in Sacramento, we have had POP officers, problem-oriented policing, and they were doing their business, their day-to-day thing, and it was unmanageable without the participation of the neighborhood. And so they have a Cops and Coffee event where you could come and talk about the issues that you have.
So in the area I worked, which was along the Broadway and Stockton Boulevard corridors, you could see that prostitution is a problem out there. And so being a POP officer, we said, well, what are we going to do to come up with a long-term solution to prostitution? Arresting and rearresting the prostitutes wasn't working for us. And so we started looking around, like what else is out there? And ultimately what we found is that the programs that were the most effective were survivor-led or peer-led models, where it was former prostitutes who were running the programs or who were the key to the programs that were out there. Cash came about because we were looking for long-term solutions. And so we created basically a working group. And it had former prostitutes, it had community members, it had people from the business association, it had police officers. And we started coming up with a plan for what we were going to create and what the women needed. We got money from the business association to get started. The Stockton Boulevard Partnership gave us a chunk of seed money. And we went out and started finding former prostitutes who were clean and sober that we could hire to begin our program.
The woman who mentored me for a year, she was also an ex-sex worker, and she called me one day and she said, there's a job that's perfect for you. Call this lady and go over there and interview. And so they asked me, have I ever been arrested or convicted or anything? And this fleeting cross goes through my mind, but here goes this job. I'm not going to get this job. So there was this slight hesitation, thinking, well, I guess I'm wasting my time. And I said, yeah, I'm on probation for a prostitution charge right now. I said, only for a couple more months, though. And they said, oh, you're perfect. And who would have thought that that would actually help me get the job that I got here at Cash? So that was in March of 2008. They hired me as an outreach worker, and we did outreach in the streets here in Oak Park in the trunk of my car with cookies, clothes, and condoms. And that was the office. And that's how we got women to start trusting us. We drove around for 3 months, and there was me and 2 other outreach workers, and between the 3 of us, everybody kind of either knew us from prison or from being out here hanging out in the hood for so many years, you know, from being an addict. And so we'd pull over in the car and say, hey, girl, come on over here and look at the clothes. And they go, how much are they? And we go, they're free. And they go, you look different. We're like, because we're doing something different. We're not doing drugs anymore. And we want to open this center by sex workers for sex workers. And we want you to come. And so it was empowering because the women started trusting us. Come to the center. We miss you.
I miss you guys too.
In May 2008, we actually opened our first drop-in center. We were open 3 nights a week for 3 hours a night. The women would come in, they could get food, clothing, referrals, free HIV testing. And that was the beginning of starting to build the trust among the women and the prostitutes. This was a program that they could come in and nobody was going to turn them in, that they came in and they saw other women that had been there out on the street and were now clean and sober, and they could look at them and go, wow, they're off the street. I can do this too. And it gave them hope.
And now we actually do groups, we do peer counseling, we do one-on-one counseling by appointment. We have some closed groups we do during the day. We do street outreach, we do life skill groups, we do activities, and it's just the girls come and they trust us.
So getting the women off the street is going to help everyone. It's going to help the women, it's going to help the businesses, it's going to help the neighborhoods, everybody.
It took a long time to see the actual result of all of the work, primarily because it isn't all on the street front. You know, it's a lot of behavior, attitude changing, and that sort of thing. There's a lot of gratification that comes out of doing something and then having you know, the result that you want. It's not done. There is no sense of the word done. We have much more to do.
Communities who want to eliminate prostitution must start by focusing on the demand side. I mean, the Johns who are out there, the men who are out there soliciting the women. Because what we know is that arresting the men is the most effective. There is a less than 10% recidivism rate when you arrest a John. Whereas when you arrest the women, more than half of them are going to come right back out and get rearrested.
By minimizing the demand and simultaneously providing a resource for the ladies to see another way of life, everyone is seeing the results of their efforts.
Cash is at a point where we're well known in the community. We're a trusted organization. And so next step, some of the things we'd like to do are to be part of the education process, where we're out there helping to train the social service agencies, helping to train law enforcement agencies across California, and also to create an alternative sentencing program or some type of a diversion program, so that when the women get arrested, we could have a program where they get sentenced to come here and do certain programs that are really going to have more of an impact and be more effective than 10 days in jail.
The goal for Cash to help other communities, government, and law enforcement agencies adopt this attitude. And the long-term solution to prostitution is definitely attainable. Initial training for the Cash staff has been an integral part of their success. It not only provided the new hires with a feeling of self-worth and a career, but in turn their knowledge is now helping others get off the streets. They attended classes at SAGE, Standing Against Global Exploitation, another survivor-led program in San Francisco. They also got to watch the Prostitution Diversion Initiative in action in Texas.
They actually get the women from the streets and offer them a program right then and there at 1 o'clock at night through a judge, goes out there on the streets, and the woman has a choice. She can go to jail or go on a program right there on the spot.
It's been a slow transition, but the perception toward those caught up in the sex trade is changing. And with that change of attitude come the ideas and solutions on ways to effectively solve the problem. Every day, more and more resources become available for both the victims and those trying to help. Information really is only a click away. And for anyone in the Sacramento area interested in volunteering at CASH, click the How Can I Help tab on their website. You don't need any experience or be a survivor to help.
A lot of the work I do now is just on my own time. And the reason I do it is because I do see how much we've helped these women, and it fills me up. And I also look the other side from law enforcement. We're having that impact that we wanted to have. But really what keeps me coming back is that I'm just helping people.
Each person that comes through CASH has something important and different to give. But for the women who have made it off the streets, maybe even more important is what they receive.
I met Julie at school. She told me about this program, and she was the first person I ever said out loud to that I had a family member that was involved in sex trade. And I had said that I would be, willing to come in and volunteer. And I got to be in the center and work with the women and meet them and know their personalities and laugh with them and joke with them, and that they were women like me. Like, I had this image of my mother that, it was scary for me. But coming here and being able to help them, and I'd say that it has done more for me than I have done for the program.
So I love what CASH is doing. I love being a part of this team. I love the women that come in through here, the women that are on the streets that they're looking for hope and change. We inspire one another. It's not just me encouraging and motivating them. They encourage and motivate me as well.
When I was first getting clean, I thought, God, what a waste. I'm a relatively intelligent woman, and this is what I did with 20 years. And when I came to this work, it all came together. And then my experience became the asset. And it gave meaning to that time that I had spent doing that. And so to finally have a sense that I was impacting my environment, that I could impact someone's life, was hugely fulfilling.
I'm a survivor of commercial sexual exploitation. I'm a drug and alcohol counselor, and it gives me satisfaction and joy knowing that if nothing else, that I can help make a difference in the life of at least one other person. I'm a student at Sac State working on my bachelor's in social work. College is fun, and I'm not in school to rush and get a job. I'm in school because school is the journey. I'm living the journey right now.
I had attained a great job with a lot of benefits. They were paying for my housing, which was essential to get my children back, and they were working with me knowing the fact that I had a CPS case. They knew my background, and my boss comes over to my house and wants a massage. And instead of normal, I would have been like, oh, I gotta give this guy a massage so I can keep this house. That side of me wasn't there. That was the most empowering moment because my normal self wasn't there no more. All of a sudden, I crinkled my nose and was like, are you serious? How dare you ask me to do something like that? I am not a masseuse, nor am I your masseuse. Ultimately, I wound up quitting that position, but I had to do the right thing. I couldn't let my kids come home in an environment where that was possibly going to be going on because I know how that works. And with the support of my family, with this program, and with my social worker, because I was very open with her, I get my kids back the beginning of next month. I'm not ashamed of what I've done. I'm not proud of it, but I'm trying to make my worst liability be turned into a good asset. And I see that light at the end of the tunnel opening because there is life past prostitution. When I came here, I didn't see that life.
Thank you.